Okay. So as I said, today's topic is about components, and components are things that it's not like a group. It's something that you would be creating for a reusable purpose. So think of a scenario where you try to create a component. Now you want to use that component on multiple apps, right? Like a reusable code. So, or say you created AK has an app, and AK wanted to create same look and feel across all the apps. So they created a header and a footer, right? So that header and footer can be created as a component, and all the apps can use the same header and footer. So you don't need to recreate the headers and footers again. So that's the idea. If you want to create any reusable components, then uh, that's where these components comes into place. Now, to insert components, you have to go to insert tab, but I don't see the component. So in the header, I should be seeing a tab called components, but I'm not able to see it. The reason is because it is in preview as of today. Latest thing that I received from Microsoft is it's going to be released somewhere in January or March. It's going to become general available. So how do you activate it? So you have to go to settings and go to advanced settings, and in the preview you should be able to see components. Actually, it's an experimental preview. So it's an experimental preview called as components. You switch it on, go back, and then there you go. Now you see this tab that appeared in between icons and AI builder called as custom. Now this was actually called components few days ago. Now they just changed it to say custom because they're still working on it, right? And then you just click on new component. Now you can also see in the preview you had an extra tab called component. It was not available before. So it is only available when you switch on the components. Now, when I say add new component, I got this screen. Now this screen is your components working area. So now if you keep this entire height and width same, then when you import that component, then it would be a square shape. So you can change the component size. So as I said, it's a reusable thing, right? So you have to imagine how would, if you're designing it for a header, you don't want it square, obviously, right? So don't design it in such a way. So let's say if I want to design a header, I'd put a rectangle.
So a component is a separate canvas app. It is also more like an app, but you can reuse it in different apps. You
No,
can import.
it's not an app. It is part of an app. So one second, hold on. I'm not feeling well, so if I have to cough, I'll just go on mute.
Sure, sure, yeah.
So components are not an app.
Ju-
Components are part of the app.
So just like a screen, you like you create a new screen, like you create a like that you create a new component. It's just
Yeah, so that is what I'm explaining, right? So if you're designing a header, then this entire thing would act as a header. This entire thing is not a screen. This is entire thing is a header. So don't create something like this, because if you create something like, okay, this is my header, if I import
uh
it, entire
okay,
thing
okay.
would be part of it. So if you are trying to create a header, then make sure that it looks like a header. So make sure that the components size is kind of header. So if I'm creating header, then my width would be it. The width can be anything, but my height should be say 300,
Makes sense.
or 300 is also too much. So 150. 150 is also too much. Let's say 100. Now it makes sense, right? So this entire thing becomes my header. So
Okay.
let's go with just creating the header now. I'm gonna,
How does it become? So you can embed it into a screen in this project. Now, if you want to use it in a different app,
yes,
so so everything. So the how would you so
yeah. So
it's an app, right?
I'll show you how that import export works or how you can reuse it as well.
Okay.
Okay, so let's first look at how we can design it. Once we are ready with the design, when once we are able to implement it on our screens, then we will look into how we can reuse it on some other apps. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So let's add same thing, rectangle. Okay, so as I said, this entire thing is our header. So I want my header to be of this color, and then I want my header to show some text. So this text would appear here, and then I want an image, and then I want another image over here. And then this image is would be same as what we did with the with this.
Getting it from the Outlook profile.
Yeah, same with the
Yeah.
Outlook profile. Yes. So and all those things like what we did with the Outlook profile, same thing we can apply over here as well. So let's first make it as round. So go to design, go to your radius top left, top right, and then let's just make this nice name. So image user. Okay. So my image user dot height. And it doesn't look nice. So let's make the width equal to height as well. Okay. Oh, what did I do? Ah, so this looks good. Sorry. Oh, I by mistake, what I did is I selected original height, which was wrong. So I selected a wrong property. It should be height. Okay. Come on. Why is it doing that? Okay. So this is my header, and then here it would be my logo. So my logo, so I need my width to be same as my height, and this would be rename img logo, and then my width would be img logo, so that it becomes a square. I like everything to be square, so I'm gonna put it as square. And then this logo would be upload an image. Now there are two ways of uploading image. So you can upload an image from here, or you can even upload an image from here. So if I go to media, I can upload it from here as well. So either way it's gonna work. Okay, so I'm gonna put this image. And then if I now click on this, I get this image over here. And then because this is gonna be my user, I'm gonna say image is gonna be Office 365 user photo, and then the ID. So that would be user dot email. There you go. And then the text, I need it to be 24. I want it to be semi bold. Okay, and then it should be centered. Yeah, so that becomes my header. Then let's rename this to LBL text. Okay, so now that becomes my header. I'll go back to screen and let's add a new screen. So now I want to add that component in here. So how to add the component? Now once I create the component, I have to give the component name. So component header. And then when I go to screens, I go to custom, and now I have this component over here. Okay, so I click on that and it adds the component over here. Now I can drag it. I can expand it. Expanding actually doesn't work right now, so we'll look at how that works. But right now you can see how my component is looking, right? But it is not responsive. It is not, I cannot do anything with it. Okay, and before I make things happen with the responsiveness, I also want users to have an ability to change this text. Otherwise, how would they change the text, right? This is a hard coded value in the component. I want something to be dynamic. Now you can make your components dynamic as well, because whenever you use reusable code, or whenever you create a reusable function or class, right, you have to supply some kind of properties or some kind of parameters to it to make it generic. So we have to make our components generic as well. So how do we do that? So in the components, there's something called as custom properties. Now these custom properties are available when you actually use the components. Now if I go to components now, I don't see any properties whatsoever. Let's go and add some properties. So add new property, and then here you can give the property name. So I'm going to give header text. And then whenever I'm giving my name, the name has to be without space. So it cannot contain space. I'm just going to give header text without a space. And then because this is an input type of parameter. So like if you're writing a function, so functions has input parameters, output parameters, same concept. So this is my input, and what type of data it is it's going to contain. Is it going to contain text, number, boolean? It's all sort of data types that you have. You even have color type of data set. So but for this purpose, it's going to be text. And then we are going to say create. Once you create a property, then now you go to screens, click on this, you see that the header text appeared. Now if I change this header text, so to say Power Maverick, nothing is going to happen over here because we added the property, but we never used it in the component. So how to use the property in a component is you click on the label, and then on the text you can actually use it using the using the name. So the name is header text. So yes, so you don't get direct access to those properties. You have to use components name, which is component header dot, and then you get header text. Okay, so now I've added this. If I go to screens, boom, Power Maverick appears over here based on the property that is applied over here. Now let's go and do some add some additional properties like color. Now when you add color, and let's give a rectangle that same color. So tell me, what would it be? Hmm? No, no, no.
Component header
Yes, component header.
dot color.
Perfect. But now if I'm using header over here, it would throw an error because the data type is text. This fill requires data type only of color. And because this is of type color, it's letting us use it. Okay. Now if I go to screens, it's black. The color is black. Let's change this and then say, okay, Minel wants it to be pink. I hate that, but that's what she wants. Now, that's how you make the components dynamic. But we have not resolved for the issue where we want it to stretch it out itself, right? So our component is not responsive. It takes dynamic values, but it is not responsive. So how do we make that responsive? Well, yes, if you add height and width, how like every time then user would have to enter height and width, which would not be realistic. What they want is they want to just use this because of power ups. They would just want to just stretch this as however they want to, right? We don't know what their height would be, what their width would be. So the thing to make this responsive is similar concept that we have used in the earlier sessions when we try to make the component responsive. You use the component's height and width on your rectangle, and then accordingly align your label, and then accordingly align your logos and images. So let's go with the rectangle first, right? So on the rectangle, what you would do is you would go on width, and then you would say, okay, my rectangle's width should go exactly with my component's width. So whatever is my component's width would be my rectangle's width. Similarly, height would be my component's height. Okay, so now if we go here, if you stretch it, see it's stretching, right? But all the other components are not getting aligned with it. So we still have to work with that. So we have to make sure that the X and Y are moving along with it, and my height and width are also moving along with it for the other components. The rectangle is pretty easy. The rectangle has to span the entire thing, so it's pretty easy. But the image, so my logo has to stay always on the left side, and it should not move anywhere else. But its height and width should move along with my header. That's what I want, right? So my height and width for the image would also be components. So let's rename this rectangle header. So I want my logo to move along with my rectangle header. So it would be rectangle header dot width. And then same thing for the height. Be oh sorry, the width would not be that. Sorry. Width would not be this. Width would be my height. So height is 80, and then it should stay. So my height should increase. So my height should increase by rectangle header dot height. Okay, so now let's see. So if you go to screens and I'm here, what happened? No, the renaming doesn't affect that. The rectangle's height and width got changed again for some reason. I think so. I did that undo. That's why it. Component dot height. Okay, and my image logo is my rectangle's height. Uh, I'm here, and then my image is moving along with it. What I did. So I used my components header height and width, assign it to rectangles height and width. My logo image is configured in such a way that my width would follow the height, but my height follows the rectangle's height, right? So it's all following each other. So as one increases, the other one increases as well exponentially. You can, but sometimes if you want to underline or like now I've used rectangle and rectangle is using the entire thing, but sometimes you want a rectangle and then a line underneath the rectangle. So that's why it is what I believe in. Whenever you are trying to do all this kind of tree structure, right, go with childs and then look for that child's parent and then use the parents property only. Don't go beyond one level. If you go beyond one level, you might sometimes have issues because you will forget what has been used where. The functions are so tricky and then everything is been so interdependent. It's very hard to identify what is configured where. So if you follow one strategy, then it becomes easier for debugging as well. Okay. So now, well, this was still easy because we didn't touch the X and Y. It was on the X and Y was steady. But for this particular uh, user image, we have X and Y as well. So you can see the X is here, the Y is here. Now to make this relative, we have to make sure that we are using relative, instead of using hard codings, we have to use relative um, things. So my Y is 10. So now, and my rectangle, total rectangle height is 78. So this is one. So this 10 is 10 from top. So 78 minus 10. So there's a math included. So let me bring up the calc. So 78 minus 10. So that gives me 68, right? So I've taken the height of my entire rectangle and then I've seen that minus 10 gives me 68. So below is also so my Y is 6.8%. Okay, so let's start with that. So rectangle header dot height into 6.8. No, um, 68. Height is 80 or 0.6. Yeah, there you go. 0.06. Sorry, 6.8, right? So 6.8%. So yeah, so it came out over here. Okay. And now my height is okay, my x is okay, but my y is not. So let's say 567 and the width of my rectangle is 642 and my image is 567. So I'm going to write it down. So I'm going to write it notepad so don't forget. So it's going to be 567. Okay. And that's why sometimes it's a little complicated to make it relative, but it's all about math. 642. Okay, so now this one is the tough one. So 567 minus 642, same thing. We will try again. (642) minus 567 comes out to be 75, which means 0.075, but we have to take it all over that side. So actually we have to do 0.56. 75 minus divided by 75 divided by 1000 minus 75 20. Sorry. Yeah, 0.25 is what I need. Okay, so let's do that. So 0.25. So x. Same thing. So I can just copy whatever we have done here. But instead of taking the height, now I'll take a width. Okay, so my width is 640 and this is going to be my 0.25. 25. 0.25. 75. Well, maybe it was 0.75. Well, this looks good. Okay. Yeah, so we can play around with that percentages, but it's all about like it's all now dynamic. So now if we go to screens, and now if you move it, everything moves. Increase this, see my icon is also moving along with it, right? It's not stretching, it's moving because we have done we have only played with x and y of that image. We have not played with height and width. We can also play with height and width as well. Okay, and then now the thing only left is this. So now you guys tell me what should I change for my text.
So you want the user to be able to enter a value or just drag and
No, this is a label, so it's not gonna users are not gonna enter anything on this. They're just gonna
no, I
if
mean
I increase this, then I want my label to move along with it.
okay, just not you don't want them to resize it.
Well, I want them to resize it. Like it should increase by itself and then align itself in the center. So yeah, so x and y, but we also need to take care of height and width as well because we want to align it in the center. So here we took care of x and y, here we took care of height and width, but for this particular piece we have to take care of x and y
Both.
because we have to make sure that it's in the center, but also height and width as well because the vertical alignment should also be in the center. So that's all. Again, we can work with that. So I'll leave it up to you guys to play around with this, right? So it's all, but you got the gist, right? How you have
Yeah.
to make it relative using all these percentages, all those calculations. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now moving on. So we saw how to create components, we saw how to use them on screens, then we saw how to make them parameterized and then make them you know relative, and we also saw how to make it responsive. Now back to Sudhakar's question that he asked initially, how do we use it on multiple apps? So to use it on multiple apps, once you have component, so you can create multiple components as well. Okay, it's not like you have to create one component per app. You can create multiple components per app. You can test it out on your screen. Once your components are all working fine, now I want this header to be applied in all my organization's app. Okay, so if that's my goal, what I would do is I would click on custom and then I'll say export.
Oh, you have just that piece to be able to export. Okay.
Right, exactly. But then
That's
the file that gets generated when you export a component or when you export the app, the file extension is still the same. It's just that when you export a component, it doesn't bring along all the screens. It just takes the component piece and then gives you the component piece.
yeah, yeah.
Saving it.
Makes totally sense. Yeah.
So this MSAAP sorry app MS app file, when you export the app, you get the same file extension. When you export the component, you get the same extension.
Okay.
Okay, so let's open that. And once you have that, let's go back here. Let's create another app. It's going to be a phone layout again, blank phone layout. Okay, load. So I'm going to ask some questions. Be ready. Okay, so this got loaded. So now what should I do? You guide me.
First, go to enable the feature. So do you
Awesome.
have to do it each time?
Yes. Yes. So
Oh,
you
okay.
every app that you create to use the components, every time you have to enable the feature. So experimental feature, go to components, enable the components. Come back. Now,
Then go to insert and
yep,
then go to custom import.
there you go. I don't need to
Yep.
teach anything to you. Got it.
Maybe this was easy when we were able to follow.
Well, you're not sleeping today. That's why, Sudhakar. Okay, so this is the app that I installed from there, right? So export it from there. So once I import it, as expected, it should appear in my components list. And it's taking its sweet time. And there you go, component. Now, why am I getting errors? Yes, images is not there. And this formula would not work because the connector is not there, which is easy to fix. So you can add this and for the image, There is no other way to handle images. So what we normally do is we also add image as one of the property. So in the property you have something called as image. So that's how you can fix it. So you can fix both the things by including a property called image, and then now you have total generic component that can be used anywhere. And then these images can be supplied from the screen. So this one logo can be supplied as a logo, and this one can be supplied with that formula.
Awesome.
So no, images are not part of the component. Images are part of the app. Yeah, and that's why the idea is to make something generic, not be dependent. Right, no, you cannot. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to this app. And the last piece that I want to talk about today is, now we looked at components, but component also has one more piece to it. So why it's initially it was called components. They changed this name to custom for a reason. That the reason is because they want people to have two things, have let them create components, but also let them create code components. Now what is code components? Code components is nothing but it's called it's a other name for Power Apps custom framework, custom controls. So any custom controls that we create using PCF are called code components, and code components can also be added to Power Apps. That's in preview, and I don't believe it would be available until next release. Maybe after April it might be available, but it's a long way to go right now. But it's in preview. We can still use it. So to enable code components, you have to go to File. Now we have enabled components, but when you say you don't see any options. So if I say import component, I I should see something more over here which I don't see right now. So to enable that, I have to go to File, Settings, Advanced Settings, and maybe not here. Formula components. Oh right, yeah. This has to be part of a solution. So let's add this app to our solution. And then in this instance, I don't think so. I have any PCF control. Oh, I do have PCF control over here. So yeah, let's see. Any questions before while this loads?
No, I think. clear.
Okay. Now, still loading. I think so it's loaded. Wow, it's taking a lot. Okay, so now insert custom code input component. Now, why am I not seeing? Since there's no app in this. So what happens is when there are apps, then it shows the apps, so like the PCF controls over here itself. And you just select those PCF controls from here and then say import. No, that should not, it should just show up here directly. For some reason it's not showing. I don't know. I'll have to check, but it's pretty straightforward. When you go to insert and then if you go to import components, then you should see the components over here. You don't have to enable anything. The only thing that you have to enable is that. But let me double check because there was some notes been passed around like for a couple of days now. So I'll have to check those notes. I haven't checked those yet. But I don't believe there was anything else that we need to do in this.
Is there like a publish or something for this?
No, there's no publish. So yeah, well, publish, there is publish. I did show that, right? So you have to go to, for the components you're saying?
Yeah, to show up there.
No, so the how it works is you should have at least one code component or what we call it as PCF control in your app, like in your solutions, somewhere in your solutions there should
Solution.
be custom
Okay.
controls, and once that custom controls are available, then you get those list of custom controls over here.
Here. Okay.
I think I'm missing something. There was a trick to it, maybe I don't remember. Let me do one more thing. Let me add existing custom control. You see, I have two of them. Oh, it doesn't show up here. I don't know if you guys have registered for this. Powerusers.microsoft.com. It's a site where, and you have to log in with your Hotmail account or with your, and then you can go to a Power Apps community or you can go to several different communities, and then there are a lot of forums, and then most of the people are active, and then this is the one for Power Apps component framework. You get a lot of knowledge from this. So
Okay.
let's see. Yeah, so see how it's so easy to identify the issues. Now you already have this is Hemant Kaur, who is the manager, and he really keeps everything up to date all the time. So we are at yeah. So this we are adding the float. We're going to create a new app. Insert the control to the latest. Rename the control and add it to the app because yeah. So there are some issues. So you have to follow certain procedures right now. But as I said, that is in preview and
Yeah.
um, it won't be available in general. It won't be generally available soon because there are a lot of issues. The it only works with field control. It doesn't work with so if you have a control that is for dataset control, then it doesn't work with the dataset control. I don't know how much familiar you are with PCF, but PCF has two types. One is you can create a control on field, and the other one you can create a control on the entire dataset. Dataset means subgrids or view, right? So you can create two types of controls, and Power App does not support dataset. Power Apps only support field type controls. Like if you want to change say first name field to show some dancing man, right? Based on or something with that field, so that is a field control that is only supported with Canvas app. If you want to change the subgrid to look something different, then that is not supported by Canvas app.
Okay.
And to know more about PCF controls, you can always go to this go to pcf.gallery,
Yeah.
and then you can see a lot of controls over here.
Yeah.
And if you go to this site, it would show some of the controls if they are working on model driven app or on Canvas app. So if you say go to this date range control, so date range control is only working on model driven app.
Oh, so once I can go to that, there should be go to the second page. There should be like a button that I was trying from the morning. So form button. Go to second page. Yeah, the PCF control, the green color button. Do you see?
This one,
Yeah. So this one is
PCF
it?
button control. Okay,
So is it available on?
it's available on model driven app.
Yeah. So it should be available for to use in CRM, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the one I was trying to reuse and getting into issues. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Why? Yeah. Don't use this. See, people are creating controls without even thinking nowadays. Okay, I've seen controls which doesn't make sense. I've seen controls that are already existing, but then people are just creating controls to get their name out, which is I just don't like it. So before you use this control, try to see what code it is, because some of the controls, if they're badly written, it could create a lot of performance issues. So make sure that the controls that you're using are from a well-known person before using it. Now, I don't know who is, right? The button also not looks great. You, what I would recommend is using Office UI Fabric. So if you go to Office UI
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Fabric,
That's what
right?
Jade told me. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No.
So those are the things that you should really look into. Like this doesn't look like CRM at all. This looks really like a HTML
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
button, which is not part of CRM. So it doesn't make sense to put something like this. What makes sense is to put a button which really looks good. No.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying. So I was just taking this as a sample, creating my own library, my own namespace with everything, creating, just trying to reuse their on-click event and trying to change the look and feel and everything.
Yeah. So the reason is why it might not be working, Sudhakar, is because this particular person might be using just TypeScript. So I don't know what he has done, but Office UI Fabric only works with React.
Hmm.
So you have to implement React in your control. If you're not implementing React in your control, and if you're just using the index.ts file, then the Office UI Fabric won't work. And this guy has not used React at all. This is all using the out of the box HTML elements, which is one way to do it, but the thing is it doesn't look good.
Okay, okay, fine. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
clear. Yeah,
I think so.
thanks.
What Jay has used is, I think so, he has used Office UI Fabric, I believe, because I had asked him to use it, but I don't remember whether he really implemented it or not.
Let's see. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Okay. Any questions? Well, if there are no questions, then that's it. That's it for today.
So I'm going to be out tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, tomorrow's session is actually I was going to take look at search, how to do search, how to do filters, and how to do lookups.
Cool.
Those were the three functions. But if you don't have time, I do have a YouTube video also on that, or you can watch the recording later on.
Sure, sure. Yeah, that's all. Please record. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Cool.
Cool, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.